Hello, hello, hello. Welcome back to another episode of BoP. We got me and Chris today. We got a little bit of a COVID. We called in the boys, we called the FA, and we got ourselves extended, but they made us play anyways. So we're playing a little bit down. Just gonna be me and Chris today talking the Wolves review, which I think is a very interesting game. Lots of game for narrative, lots of game for analysis too. I think it was a really interesting game against an opponent who I rate as a coach too. Bruno Lage is an immense coach in the Premier League. I think one of the more underrated for me, among the best outside the top six. That you would traditionally say. So yeah, really great game. I think a lot of stuff to dig into, a lot of narrative. Partey 6. What did we think about that? In terms of some of the pressing, how did we think that Arteta used to press? Some of those things. But I'll go to you, Chris. Mate, how you feeling?
I'm good. I'm good. A good win. 1-0. Obviously, the focus wasn't on the win after the win, but it is what it is. Our players were happy, very evidently. First win this year, and then obviously another red card, the fourth of this year, which is crazy.
We're gonna have a conversation, like a little bit of a segment, mate, on fouls, red cards, our Arsenal. Is it fair to critique? Like for me, on one hand, you know where I stand on it, and like we'll probably get into it as a segment, but really quickly, it's as simple as we don't blame referees for results, but you can absolutely say that we've been punished to the full extent of the law more than other people. And I think both can be true, but you don't have to then blame it on maybe the refs of why you've lost it. Like I'm a big believer that you can change a tide, even if you get a poor reffing decision. But at the same token, it's ridiculous. I think Partey, didn't he get a yellow in like his first foul of the game period?
He got yellow in his first foul, and then but there were many fouls earlier than that, like in transition, because
first 5 minutes.
Him and Xhaka were making the same fouls that people were making on Martinelli on the other side of the pitch, and they were getting called, but no yellows. But Xhaka gets them fouls.
And we'll have to get into that red card, mate, which is actually like just factually law-wise is crazy because it's not a red card, but we'll get into that. I think the first thing, mate, that I wanted to get into is what do you think this means for us? We'll do a little bit of backwards thing, and we'll do the projection thing first because I think this game was caked in narrative. So you got people basically saying we cashed in our coin of playing like shit and winning, which, by the way, I refute. We deserve to win this game. We're going to keep that clear from the very start. But you had people saying that we basically beat another top four rival because however much you want to maybe debate it, Wolves were 3 points behind us and they were close to us in terms of point wise. And this could have been, for me, it was more of a 6-pointer, right? Like you look at what happened in terms of our rivals.
Ahead of us.
Exactly. So it was a great narrative. So I want to maybe go to you, mate. Like, what do you think of kind of the narrative of the game? What did this win mean for us, both in the league, but also like individually? Like, where does this stand to you on the top four race? Because, I'm seeing simulations going around from stats, finally recognizing what we said in the summer. Oh, Arsenal are on the pace for top four. Do you think the media are catching up to what we've said? Pat ourselves on the back, be narcissistic?
Yeah, especially because we took advantage of Spurs and United, or Spurs losing and United not winning, and now we have games in hand, and we're ahead of the teams that we were behind. So it's definitely great for narrative. I think with beating Wolves the way we did, with that's now 120 minutes in there that we've played this year with a red card already.
Yeah.
30 versus City, 30 versus Wolves, and 60 versus Liverpool. So that is many minutes we're now playing with red cards and not conceding goals whilst having a red card. We haven't conceded. Well, we've conceded one in the 95th minute versus City with a red card. So just the resolute factor of these players, the resilience is increasing, and I was hearing that a lot, and you could just see with how happy they were, because obviously, Ruben Neves was the one that said, "You celebrate like you won the league, mate."
So salty.
You, if they played with a red card for 30 minutes, they would celebrate like that.
Do you know how ironic it is? Moutinho literally sputted the referee when we went 9 men down last year. Like, what? Like, how shameless do you have to be? I hate whiny bitches like that. I'm sorry. Screw it. I swore. Sorry, comments. But I hate.
No top team has played as well as we did versus Wolves away. I think this season.
For sure.
Wolves have one of the best home records in the league, one of the best defensive records in the league. They've conceded 16 goals, and we the first half we absolutely peppered their goal. especially on set
Which,
pieces.
by the way, a little cute that we also did the same after our first 3 games. We've only conceded
Yeah,
16, but yeah, go ahead.
first corner. That's the first corner they've conceded all season, and it was from us. I think for the narrative, that game was very good and very bad actually. It was very good because you have even Man United legends like Rio Ferdinand speaking about the red card and stuff, and how like if it was any other team, it wouldn't probably not get a red card. Same as Arteta, and then yeah, as Mush said, going down to 10 men helped us control the game, but going down to 10 men for me, it it just showed the resolute factor. Just keeps bringing out the resilience of the team and the mentality, because when you win games like this, there's the only way it really is up with 11 men.
Well, mate, you know what? I'm going to tease a little bit. I'm going to use Mush's, comment as like a little bit of a transition period here, because you're telling me it helped us control the game, which I think many people can agree. What does that mean we were lacking prior to that happening, in your opinion? For me, I'll just tell you quickly the answer: central compactness. What does a block do? It makes us go to that 5-3-1. We did it with Liverpool when by the way, we were struggling until the red card. We actually played better with 10 men. But why is it that we are more compact with essentially 10 men? And really quickly, Rio, mate, thank you so much for the super sticker. We're always going to appreciate you fans that are actually willing to do that for us. But again, you go into that 5-3-1 block. What does that mean was the problem in midfield for us very generally? If before we were struggling and you're telling me after going to 10 men, we actually controlled more by being deeper. What does that mean for you,
For me,
essentially, Chris?
it just means that we didn't have anything, or we lacked a lot centrally, because
Yeah.
when you go down to a red man, you try to stretch the pitch and force everything to come from outside, because you don't want them to beat down the middle, because there'll be more penetration if they come down the middle. So you go to the 5 back, you bring on holding, you say we want everything to come into the box and we're gonna get rid of it. That's what you want. But before that, we were getting everything to come into the box, but we didn't want it to come in. But we couldn't keep ourselves centrally with like Xhaka and Party centrally. Our midfield wasn't doing well enough of a job, especially in transitions, to keep Wolves away from us. So
Shock horror, the lone pivot, makes you susceptible in transitions. And I don't mean to lead you down a comment to further pat people down on the back, but I do, because I'm a dick. But in terms of, I'll answer the question about narrative, and then we'll get into this, because we've kind of danced around the bush about tactics and stuff. But generally, what I think this does, right? We now have several sample of some of the best teams in the world where we've gone down to 10 men and we've won. Actually, really fun fact, Arsenal are the team that have won the most in the Premier League era after going down to 10 men. And we're clear of Manchester United by several wins in that aspect. So fun little fact there. But this idea that Arsenal right now, are not amongst the most formed teams in the league, I find is ridiculous. Over the last 14 games, I think we've won 9 games and kept 7 clean sheets. That is immense. Aaron Ramsdale is on 11 clean sheets, only tied with Allison and Ederson, who has 14. That is immense. And people are talking about Bruno Lage and his ability to have a great defensive record, which he does.
30, sorry, Ederson 30.
13. Sorry, yes. So 13. So I just find it absolutely ridiculous that when's the last time that a team has recruited essentially 3 out of the 4 back line that were completely new to the team and managed to have this much chemistry? I'll wait. And in this game, the spine of the team for me was the narrative. So Chris, you talked about everybody outside the top 4, what it means for me, for Arsenal. The spine won us the game. They were immense as a pair of both center backs and Gabriel and White. Ramsdale was back to his best too. He had a little bit of choppy form that we were highlighting a little bit before. He seemed back to his best. And of course, Thomas Partey, for me, clear man of the match. But we probably should get into like the starting 11. So I'll do that. What did you make of the starting 11? First, mate, I know you thought that Odegaard would start. I wanted us to have Emile starting. We didn't get what George wanted, but you wanted the similar. But either way, what did you make of the starting lineup? Any big surprises?
No, I thought obviously the Tommy Tomiyasu thing was always going to be weird, because we didn't 100% know where he is in his recovery. Well, we knew it was close. They said it was close, and then so obviously Cedric coming in, it was either Cedric or Holding. I wouldn't have preferred either or, because I think having Ben White there, because versus Burnley our progression seemed off, so I wanted Ben White centrally. So yeah, thinking about it, I would have went 4-2-3-1. That was my issue. I didn't think it would be a 4-3-3. I would have went 4-2-3-1 and have Erdogan in the 10 for the late runs, but he went 4-3-3/4-1-4-1. So with the lineup, there's not much else I would have changed apart from the structure rather than the players.
Well, you know what this gave for me, mate, is I think honestly it's Mikel learning. And what do I mean by that? So in the past, a big flaw of Mikel Arteta has always been his inability to replicate patterns. What I mean by that is if there is somebody that's missing, like a Granit Xhaka, like a Kieran Tierney, he typically galaxy brains and does something that we really wouldn't expect. And when you think about that, I think him finally realizing that we just put Cedric in the back there, it helps you in two ways, right? Because if you put Holding as your replacement and you put Ben White wide, you're not getting the same level of competency aerially as Tommy. So you're losing something in the right back spot, right? You're gaining progression, but you're losing there. But you lose central compactness and you lose the progression from Rob Holding. So you're actually hurting yourself in two zones. That is something that I don't think Mikel has learned, because when he has gone Galaxy Brain, Villarreal, ESR is the false nine, it's a solution that can work, but you hurt yourself in multiple areas of the pitch as opposed to just hurting yourself in one area. And finally, if I have a poor right back and he has a poor game, it's longer to goal. His failure about controlling somebody out wide means the distance to goal is a lot longer than it is centrally. So for me, it's always been a case of I've really wanted Mikel to learn, and I was happy when I saw the lineup that he did learn, in my opinion, that you don't hurt yourself in two spots to solve a problem. That's lunacy. That's something that he has done and he needed to learn. So I was really happy to see that. And like you, mate, I thought it was the pivot. I'll be honest with you. We're going to have a pivot discussion. Don't worry. I think it's the story of the game. But in all, I think I was happy with that lineup that, Cedric, I was worried. I won't lie. Hands on heart. Everybody knows in the comments I've got an agenda to Balding and, Cedric, who ironically had great games. I got to roll my eyes at that. But they had very good games. Holding more.
So one of them or both of them is like either or. So I wasn't angry or anything. I was like either or. So if they perform, I'll be very happy. But if they don't, it's expected, isn't it? And before we move on, thank you, Kulis, for the donation. You are part of the Hall of Fame, as you say. But thank you. Go on, George.
Yeah, no, mate. Like it was. It was essentially a case of our agendas having great game. You got to hold your hands up. But look, this is solving a problem, right? Like Holding, and we'll get into it. I think he deserves his own thing. But again, really quickly, he's our best low block defender. So using him in the right way is important here. And it's not like he just cashed in his one good game. This is how he's supposed to be used. If you do,
you bring him on.
Exactly. You want to defend the box, and you're deep, and you've got compactness in terms of your lines. Rob Holding is your guy. And other than that, if you want him to dictate, chuck him in the bin. Because that's not something that he's due. That's pre-hairline Rob. Post-hairline Rob is only good in the pocket. Anyways, before we get canceled, we do have to move on to the first half. So essentially, big thank you. Mate, thanks again for your super chat. And he's right. Another pivot start, another win, slightly different in our structure, absolutely, but it just shows the consistency of that midfield pairing. It's another data point, right? So now it's 8 games, 6 wins, right? I think in total 21 goals scored and only 6 conceded. Guys, those are some major stats, okay? And as we keep going, the stats increase, only positive, not lessen. So yeah, mate, like it's absolutely immense. But let's get into that first half. So for you, Chris, what did you make of the start? In my opinion, our worst period came at the start of both halves. And we struggled, especially in the first half, after a good flurry for about a minute or two, if I'm being fair, from us. We did well to press. I think we really kind of struggled in the first 15, 20 minutes, especially Odegaard, who was very absent in the first 15, 20 minutes. And it led to us not really dominating the ball and relying on Martinelli to be an outlet. And I did get worried. I'll be honest with you. That first 15 minutes of the game, I wasn't a fan of how we approached that. What did you make of that first 15 minutes?
I think the first maybe 10, 20 seconds, you saw immediately we were going 4-on-4-on, trying to put Neves in this triangle instead of pressing him man for man like we've done Rodri, Douglas Luiz, Sumare, all these guys you've played 4-2-3-1, and you put the 10 on him and a man mark him out of the game, and it's worked every single time. But this time he tried to go zonal, and maybe it worked maybe the first 5 to 10 minutes, maybe at a stretch 10 minutes, and then after that it just stopped working. I think the most intense we were in the half was probably the first 20 seconds, and then after the intensity fell off, and then we failed to press well. And because Xhaka was so eager to go forward, and Erdegaard doesn't do that, he stays deeper. He was leaving space in the middle, which someone had to fill in, and Martinelli would try fill in, and then it would leave Tierney 1v1, who had a very poor game, I felt. And then with Tierney 1v1, he was very poor. I think this is by far his worst game this season. And then with that consistently Tierney being 1v1, it just didn't work. I think the first half, the way we got the goal, in that 5 to 10 minute period of where we got the goal, we were very good, very good. But
well, let's tease out that press, mate, because I think that's the big tactical. So there's two tactical issues in my opinion that happened here. In midfield, we went 1-2, and that's kind of that 4-1 that you were talking about, right, Chris? And then the zonal marking on that DM pivot in every single game, and I don't know if people in the comments have recognized, but Arsenal against three at the back teams have been very good. Now, what is the one constant thread? And maybe people in the comments, this is interactive, so if you know the answer, please shout it out. What is the one common thing that has worked in our pressing of three at the back teams against Leicester, against Spurs, and against Aston Villa, who are big flagship three at the back performances? I'll wait like 10 seconds, Chris, if you know the answer, that I'm kind of leading you down because I love doing this. What do you think is the big change pressing wise that we did?
We either man marked. We went 4-4-2 instead of 4-on-4-on initially. Then we man marked the DM / progressor. So Declan Rice and Douglas Luiz, Sumare, Højbjerg, all of them. We man marked them out the game, apart from Rice actually. We man marked the other three out the game.
Exactly. That is completely it. So it was going from a man marking system to zonal. And what we did is we went zonal because we were anticipating adding somebody to the front line, aka Xhaka. In order to get that pivot, we wanted to push them back. The theory in behind of it, right, is you wanted to take out Neves in different ways. So like Mush, you're right. Like you want to take out the main progressor, but I want to go one step further. How do you do that? Do you do that through man marking? Do you do that through zonal? And what we did in this game is it was zonal. We pushed Xhaka high. We pushed Lacazette, who was horrible after 10 minutes, refused to run. But in theory, him, Martinelli, and Xhaka formed the triangle to surround Ruben Neves. And the theory was stop him that way instead of going man marking. Now, for me, that was a big mistake. What that did is it essentially left holes at the back for Trincao to come in. It left holes for Podence, who was dropping in and causing us absolute shame in those half spaces. And it let Partey be isolated once again to kind of work out where to run defensively. And he was immense, by the way. He got dealt a bad hand and was phenomenal. But Ruben Neves, De Donker even, of all people, they were just chipping it over Granit Xhaka and finding space constantly. And when you go essentially zonal marking like that, you need your defensive line to step up. It basically means that if Gabriel or Tierney doesn't follow that half space person going in, you're going to be ripped apart. By the way, we saw this with Firmino at Liverpool.
Yeah.
Okay. And the reason is if you don't go and you man mark that DM, who's a three at the back system in that way, and Liverpool, ironically, by the way, Trent forms that three at the back too. So it's all makes sense. It's the same reason. And for me, it's a very simple thing that Mikel has to change. I am upset with that structure because it loses us both ways. Not only do we lose zonally in that aspect, we basically lose our progression from deep, and it's why we sacrifice territory. So in this first 15, 20 minutes, you guys saw, and I think this was the story of the game, Wolves got the more territory, but they were limited to really poor shots. That's the only benefit that I'm going to say. So on one hand, we sacrificed a lot of that territory, and so people might say we lost control. But for me, they didn't have really a good shot all game. And in the end, in that first half, we ended with the most shots against a team versus Wolves 9 than anybody in the Premier League.
And 1.4 XG.
Yeah,
In the first
which
game.
was phenomenal. And I think that leads us into a beautiful kind of transition where, really quickly, for Perlsa, I'm butchering that name. Are we evolving from Tierney? No. For me, essentially what it shows is we want flexibility to both systems. I think, Chris, me and you, like, we all know what kind of things we prefer, but what we want are kind of complements and flexibility between both systems here. We've seen Sample with this type of system. We've seen Sample, our best performance against City was a pivot, very different, where we went man marking in our pressing, where we started with the pivot at the back. It was very different, and the outcomes are slightly different. So the biggest thing for me right now is he's doing a coaching thing. Does everyone remember when we had Aaron Ramsey and we chucked him at the right wing? We did so to improve his ability in tight spaces. That's what we did against a very poor angle. That's what you do when you put a left-sided midfielder who runs into the box on the right wing. It closes angles. You make him good at tight spaces. What we're seeing now for me is Arteta's coaching up Tierney in terms of where he's weak, and it is progressing from deep and build up. It is something his ability to be calm in the box. He has a little bit of that Scottish fullback in him and get rid, throw it to Rosie, and he needs to be a
so much in the first maybe 20 minutes where we Gabriel would calmly header it to him and he just clear it.
clear.
Out, just inviting pressure.
And again, he's not helped because I don't think it's a role that suits him. And by the way, it doesn't suit Saka to meet his man high up the pitch to go into this zonal marking system. It doesn't get the best out of these two people in those roles. And so the very key, and anybody in the comments, why is it that we've changed a little bit? Well, it's Gabriel Martinelli, just for people to understand. So somebody that starts wide on the touchline winger like that, what that means is you've got to shut one of your pivot higher up the pitch in order to kind of offer that zone, that inside zone. And it means that if, Martinelli's going to be the wide outlet, Tierney has to hang back. Those are the rotations in that triangle that change. If we add Emile Smith-Rowe, Granit Xhaka drops deep into that, left center back spot. Tierney is the wide outlet and ESR is much deeper. And that for me means that all three of those players are in places that they prefer to be. Now, this is something that I really want Mikel to kind of isolate on. Like, for me, if you're going to go 4-3-3, calm, know when to do it. But this is the rotation that you have to see. We're basically going to have an isolated pivot in the six. It doesn't matter who it is. You can insert anybody. But what you're going to have is your left winger be touchline, and you're going to have your 8 be the inside half space person. Now, if you want to switch and become a pivot, you've put your fullback in the wide channel and you've added a left wing who's more of a 10. And your pivot becomes defending the transitions out wide. That is the biggest difference between a pivot and a 4-3-3 and how we use it. Because on the right, it's common. It's always the same. We've got that inverted right back. We see Partey and Odegaard. They change a little bit. And Saka's always wide on the right. And so we even see that, for me, which is a great transition to some of the stuff that we're going to talk about in this first half, with Saka just taking control, being a hooper, as the youngins say, and just, ripping Wolves apart. But mate, let's go to the first highlight of that first half so that we don't, lecture too much. But first couple minutes, Lacazette, I want to highlight him until we get to the corner kick, because we're going to talk about Nicolas Jover. What do you think is the problem when Martinelli goes central striker and Lacazette goes out wide?
First of all, Martinelli expects him to keep up with play, but doesn't look, because he'll naturally expect it, because from his right he can see, because he's dribbling like this to his right, he can see Saka's keeping up with him, so he assumes Lacazette's on the left keeping up with both of them, and there was many times where he'd just break through the middle, go past a couple people 1v1, and then lay it off to nobody, and we just consistently lose pressure. I think Martinelli got very frustrated early on and off the ball, because Lacazette wasn't doing enough work. So Martinelli would try to press centrally, which would mess up the press altogether, and he'd stay very high. It wasn't really always a flat 4-4, 4-1, 4-1 as we wanted it to be. It was sometimes a maybe a 4-4-2, but Martinelli was just very high on the left wing. So you could see he was very, very frustrated with how Lacazette and maybe Erdegaard a bit left the spacing very off, because when he's going high on the left hand side and Xhaka's following, the other two on the right hand side aren't doing this the same pressure, which leaves the gap. So he just decides, I'm gonna do all the running by myself, which he can do, but at the same time it leaves gaps where he's coming from. So if he's gonna run centrally, it means someone has to cover him on the left wing. And then eventually he just gave up and started dropping deep and trying to help Tierney 1v1 because we were losing that as well.
And that's the story of the first 20 minutes, guys. I'm sorry if it got a little bit too tactical and too numbery, but this is the big problem about what happened for us. Now, how did we solve it, essentially? I don't think we solved it well, I must add. But we're going to get into the set pieces, mate, because, look, 24 minutes in, we're struggling. Let's be honest with ourselves. We're sacrificing territory. Once again, I think Neves is finding Trincao and Podence in the pockets. We've talked about how that reason was bad. I still think Mikel should have learned and put Xhaka deep immediately. I would have put Emile Smith-Rowe on right away, taken out Laka. And maybe that's, look, he's doing it for the dressing room. He already was in a very big...
He wasn't going to take him off early with him just being announced captain.
So exactly. And he was in big tactical discussion with Laka, which I think was ridiculous. How can you put that Hall of Shame performance in and be upset with Arteta at the sub?
After your miss. After that 1v1 miss, he came over and they had a shouting match on the touchline, which was very weird. But
ridiculous.
Before you go onto the corner, the things that I think maybe the 2 minutes before that we started progressing well. A couple of minutes before that we started progressing well. And then the Saka first time right foot pass started happening, and that came to the Ben White chance, which was blocked, which led to the corner.
Can I add? Let me just add to that, mate. It was because Odegaard, the shit I give him, gotta give him credit. He put his foot on the ball. He went from anonymous to not, and it helped. And I think Partey was immense defensively. So we were getting ripped in those 15, 20 minutes, but Partey was holding his own, and he was pissed. We were kind of talking off camera. He was livid at Ben White. Why? Ben White had a struggle at the start, but the right-hand side started to gel. And what it was Partey finally became the alpha. I don't know if anybody noticed. We were talking about off camera, but he was telling Ben, stop getting sucked into the middle. Stop following Podence. Hold your position. Odegaard, you get on the ball. And Odegaard dropped deep, and it really did help. And look, again, every time Odegaard comes to help in our build-up, we do well when we do this lone pivot. And you know why? It makes a pseudo pivot, Chris.
It does, because he drops deep to the right hand side, and obviously Cedric, being the player who he is,
he'll go
space
exactly.
Take up, so it's the same shape that it would be with Tommy there.
Yeah.
And Odegaard just has free room on the right hand side to with less contest
he goes away from the physical challenge. It's called what it is. And then he looks good. Shock horror. But, these are like the tactical nuances that I really don't think many people have been talking about and why this suddenly worked. And it deserves credit, because the man who did struggle, he was high up the pitch. And I think Odegaard took leadership in this role. And so did Partey. It was the first time I saw Partey really bark orders. And this was his midfield. And by Odegaard dropping deep like that, Cedric, who again had a good game, I hold my hands up, the guy that I hate, he was good. He was offering overlaps. He was really he was taking the space well. When Partey would switch the ball to him, he would drive, and Ben was doing that and leaving us exposed. So I think that was the little tactical tweak that really helped us gain control in those first 2 minutes.
Obviously it speaks to the decisiveness, because we weren't overall dominant. If you look at general play, we weren't overall dominant in the possession and stuff, but those small decisions, and when you're very decisive in your play, if you have less, even if you have less touches and stuff, if you're going to be very decisive, you're going to be more impactful. The decision to tell Odegaard to put his foot on the ball more, the decision to tell Ben White to stop getting sucked in by Jimenez and Podence and stay in line with Gabriel, helped us stop conceding the corners so poorly, and therefore our progression was much better, because Ramsdale was easier for him to claim, because you can't just meet a defender 1v1.
It put another ball carrier deep, mate. It really simple. As much as we talk about these rotations, it put a prominent ball carrier deep. Before we had one, now we have two. And it's really quite simple that when you do have a 3 at the back system, by the way, you're going to lose yourself in those wingback roles, right? Like the wingback creates an overload wide. That's what it does. So if you're going to isolate him with just Partey and Cedric, or just Partey with White, you're going to lose that battle. It's a 3v2 every single time. So Odegaard dropping deep helped us. We matched up well. That was us matching up, and we started to progress. And then that leads us to the corner. I'm going to walk you through what do you think the corner routine was? I think it's really simple. Kind of knock on by Ben White, which is phenomenal. And, Laka's there, smart. Clashes with Saw, who, by the way, jumped into him. It
And
wasn't a
Laka touched the
Lacazette.
ball before they clashed, anyways.
Exactly. And then Gabriel puts it in. But, like, mate, what really quickly, what do you make of Nicholas Jover? Because I've been praising him so much on this channel for a while, but now that makes us, I have to double check the stats, but we are up there for teams that score the most set piece goals in the Premier League, and we are definitely the ones that concede the least. We've got data to back that up.
Yeah, we are the ones that. I think when he first came in, obviously Andreas Georgson did a very good job on us
Defensively.
That we were by far number one in the league, and the biggest change from the season before to that season. So he did a very good job defensively. So it was like iffy on why he was leaving, but from Aston Villa, maybe that when Partey was meeting every single corner near post, that was when it first shocked me how the big change. And then it was very decisive when Martinelli and Saka will be taking the corners, regardless of really who's on the pitch. And there were even moments where Erdegaard, obviously being who he is, wants to take corners, show his delivery and stuff. Martinelli just picks up the ball, moves it, and tells him to walk away. So it's very clear that they have a plan, and even if they don't waver from it, like this near post, regardless of who it is, Partey, we've seen Gabriel score from it, we've seen Partey score from it, we've seen Ben White create problems for it. This near post whip from Martinelli and Saka is just working very well. And for us defensively, obviously we're kind of a big team, and having Gabriel there aerially are going to be prominent anyways, but the delivery change and just the consistency of where the ball is going just speaks to what he's doing on offensively rather than defensively, because we're scoring more corners than we have since maybe like proper Koscielny times, where him and Mustafi were scoring.
But he has a philosophy, right? Like anybody, I would urge people to do some research into Nicholas Jover. Of course, a lot of people were worried coming from Man City, but he wants to create a philosophy on set pieces. I found that phenomenal. It's just an innovative coach doing the Brentford thing of doing smart, modern things for the marginal gains to be not so marginal, to be major. As Alex is putting it here, like it's true. It's been a major part of our dual threat. And by the way, why is that a negative? If you're one of the best teams in the league at set pieces and maximizing your goals through there, that just means when you're not playing well, which we weren't, it digs us out of trouble and it gains.
It also means when you are playing well, you have another place to score goals from. Like you need to maximize the amount of places you can score goals from. So
absolutely,
increasing our probability of scoring from corners it can't be a negative. It just can't. Scoring corners can't be a negative.
That's why I hate this narrative. But look, in the end, we won't spend too much long, but we get the corner from a beautiful routine. We've been doing this all the time, by the way, and I would highlight everyone to have a look. Watch the short post run. We always start deep, and we have two decoy runners. One goes straight, and the other one goes straight inside for the near post. It's a very simple technique. We've been doing it all season, and they knock it into the danger area where three players are crashing the box, always. And so whether it's Gabriel, it's Laka, whoever it is, there's somebody there to pick up the second ball from the first header. And that's how we get our goal, mate. And it's a well-worked kind of corner after us sacrificing a ton of territory and playing quite poorly. But then, mate, for me, the right-hand side started gelling. The left-hand side continued to have its problems. Tierney, like we said, worst game in the shirt. Granite still wasn't great. He was actually especially poor in possession. And that's because for me, people are highlighting that. But why do you think Granite is poor as he's higher? Shock. It's because he's got less space to operate in. And, I don't understand. Sorry, go ahead.
He has more pressure, so it makes him have to be more decisive. He can't just pick his passes and pick someone up from 50 yards. He has to have more pressure and spin, because his half run is improved, but it's still not great. So
it's never been his strength though, mate. And I don't understand why people are shocked. Again, we are putting him and Kieran, though, to be fair, in situations they are not comfortable with. But I think it is a band-aid in order to kind of work in the wide winger play that we've been doing of late, and that's the only reason. We talked about those rotations, so I won't get over it again. Just go back in the pod, people in the comments, if you're a little bit confused. We talked about those pivot and loam pivot rotations, but afterwards, mate, I'm gonna keep it on you essentially. So we got this goal, and then Bukayo Saka takes over.
1v1.
1v1. This man is just a cheat code. He's a cheat code. He factually is a cheat code. And guys, I hate to break it to you, but we've got a superstar on our hands here. Okay. Essentially, what we've got is somebody that's got his own move. He's got the Robin, I call it, but now it's the Saka. And Chris, I'm going to take it to you. What is that move? Because we see it every game.
Before we go into the move, I think the change that we made on the right hand side with Partey White and Ødegaard really helped Saka, because it meant Saka was 1v1 a lot of the time. And when he's 1v1, regardless of who it is, Robertson, whoever it is going to get killed. I think every single game he gets this like first time pass from like Ben White or whoever it is. He's touchline, one touch past the defender on the outside, on the inside, nutmeg, like that nut, or this time it was a nutmeg. But either time he just goes inside, outside, whatever it is, that first touch of his, because he's so, like, I don't know what it is, he's so like slippery and he's good on both feet that he's very.
It's his gait. He's a superstar. He can roll any marker.
And
period.
Protect the ball, because the center of gravity now 5'11", 6 foot, he still maintained it. No defender can get the ball off him once he rolls them. They're gonna have to drag him down. So then he just jink, and then 1-2 Ødegaard, who I'm very happy has started to play the ball first time now, because before maybe West Ham's the earliest that he played it back straight away. That's the first time he played it back straight away. And now,
look, mate, if Ødegaard is going to be technically secure in contact and play vertically, I have no problem with the lad. And by the way, when he does it, it still wasn't great. By the way, that first time ball, it's off his right foot and it's like bouncing. But mate, you doing that gives Saka the advantage. Even if it's not a great pass, you see us exploit it. And we did that so well. Really quickly before I go to the next phase of play, John Barnes, mate, thank you so much for your super chat again. Let's do the question. This is a little bit of a pat on the back. Is the team preparing to have finishers as subs? We usually make the same subs. Mate, if you follow me, that's the question I asked Mikel so many months ago, and it's something I've warned everybody just to get used to, quite simply. We are moving to a team. We got to stop these formations, Chris. We got to stop debating 4-3-3 pivot. It is the same freaking thing. We do attack and defend in 5 channels, okay? In the end, this 4-3-3, we end up making a pivot when we start pulling well. When Ødegaard drops deep, I'm sorry, I know it's not traditional. It's a pivot in the back there. And when you do those things, right, the team is flexible to different game states. Mikel wants to build an 11 that he doesn't have one set formation for the entirety of the 90 minutes. We will switch things 3 or 4 times per match, depending on the game state. And what we will have, though, is a team of finishers as subs. Agree, 100%, John. You know, I've said this for a while on the timeline. We need to get used to the fact that Mikel is going to make things very specific. And to quote his response to my question, things are becoming more specific for players in roles. And we absolutely are going to have different plans for different game states. You're down to 10 men, chuck on Rob Holding or a low block defender to turn it to a 5-3-1. If you're winning, we're going to actually or if we're winning and we want to hold the lead, Tavares has always come in as the left winger, little bit of Wenger in Arteta's thinking. He's going to have a defensive left wing to kind of come back in and add a little bit more. These are subs that we're starting to see, and they're very premeditated. Don't think it's coincidence, people in the comments. It absolutely is Mikel's thinking. But, mate, I want to give you a chance. What do you think about this?
It's very evident on the players he's bringing on, because if you bring on the Tavares at left wing, he knows immediately if anything happens, I can play Tavares right back, left back, and left wing. So with a Mill, he brings on a Mill. You can play him left wing in the 10 and in centre mid if we go 4-3-3. So he's bringing on these players that obviously they come into the role that's currently occurring, but as the game progresses, you could make a change and those players won't hinder him from making the change in the game state. So with like a Mill, obviously he's been dealing with the injury, so you don't want to play him. But it was the same thing with Martinelli. Sometimes you see him come on at striker for Oba, he'll come on at left wing or he'll come in right wing. Like He wants to consistently have these players who are versatile in roles. So when you bring them on as finishers, they can finish in different roles. And say you bring on a Mill 70th minute, he gets the goal in 2 minutes. You can then go narrow, and a Mill can do the defensive work because he's varied in his role. So yeah, I think we're preparing to have finishers at subs, and we're seeing it. And obviously, with a red card, you see whenever you get a red card, he always brings on Nketiah just because he wants the
The
work,
legs.
the legs, yeah. And then he always brings on Holding just to have a very good aerial threat defensively. Obviously, we saw the issues with that at the time of West Man City. With the one time he was poor aerially, it cost us. But the subs are very predictable at this point, and it depends on what is happening at the time. So if we need a goal, he probably turns to Emil or Martinelli first. That's what he really does. When we need a goal, we rarely need a goal at those times.
Absolutely. And so here, the biggest thing is after the goal, right? What's really happening is Wolves took over a little bit. So I want to just talk factually. What what kind of happened is Wolves responded to this, and what Jose Sa was doing. Xhaka and Martinelli were high. He was finding Trincao in the half space, and Martinelli or not Partey gets a foul, but that exposed us. It was a very simple pass. Trincao just drops deep, and we talked about our rotations. Okay. And that was the weakness. Partey gets a yellow, but immediately, if you guys look, I urge everyone to rewatch. Odegaard starts coming back, and about the 35th minute, he gets a foul himself, which, by the way, isn't a yellow card. Ridiculous, but I don't want to hang on the refs. But that is the moment, by the way. Odegaard is phenomenal in taking charge, and he forms the pivot. I urge everyone to watch it back. We went from that lone. He comes in, he drops deep, he gets fouled, but he offers that rotation. And it leads to Wolves getting a superstar chance in the 33rd minute from that deep cross. It was the one time that I think they had an excellent delivery from Marcel. And, Granit does a beautiful header to kind of get it away. But
that was scary.
It was scary because it was the one big chance of the match for me with Wolves. And then Yo-Yo, mate, just for the minute, if you're looking for the minute when Bukayo Saka does the super skill, and I'm going to call it the Saka since we have the Smith, it was in the 42nd minute. I think 42nd and 40 seconds, something like that. That is the Smith. And so, yeah, I really think when you see that move, by the way, I do want to break it down a little. When you're looking at it, Bukayo does this thing, and I don't know what it is, but he's got a phenomenal control of the ball, but a control of his body, I would actually call it. It's not even the ball, because he jukes and he feints, and he uses momentum of the ball to drag markers out, and he takes people out of the game, mate. And it's like when he's deep like that and he continues, he attacks inside. And the one thing that got me super excited was he took people in and out, both sides, like they were butter. They were just absolutely
very tight space.
And that's, he got the arrogance to do that, where he went inside and then outside, and I was like, okay, you're arriving. You're like, I want to put you on your ass. That's what. Look, as a player,
with the move on the touchline, it's just like he always makes them think, which is incredible. Like only the best players can do it. He makes every single time, makes the defender believe he can get the ball. We saw it with Ben Godfrey when he hit him on his knee. We see it all the time. Danny Rose, we see it every single week. Like even not last week, but that was like 3 weeks ago versus Burnley, he did it as well. Like he always makes the defender. He sucks them in perfectly, and he just bursts on the outside. And then when he gets that space, and he can just pick a pass with the other guy 1-2, and then pick out Lacazette or pick out Ben White. He's picked out both of them. Laka went straight to the keeper, and Ben White's shot was blocked. But it was just consistently, and he's getting better. And even though his right foot delivery was very good, he's getting more consistent and getting him assists like with the Southampton goal.
And look, guys in the comments, pay attention. I'm giving Odegaard praise. Again, first time ball. That's what happens when you play first time. When I say that Odegaard needs verticality, I mean he needs to play the ball first time ahead. He needs to stop kind of doing the mazy runs, because he can do it. He can do it. And when you do that, you isolate Saka 1v1, and he is deadly from that. And he did a great job. He passes it back, and of course, Lacazette does the stupid thing. and he misses. Look, we had 2 block shots. Ben White, like 30 seconds before this, Saka moved, did the same thing. He had an opportunity where Saka is left 1v1, right foot cross, bang, gets blocked. Laka does the exact same thing. And before we keep going, Arsenal Champions League winners, 22-23. I agree. But thank you so much, mate, for your super chat. Again, guys, we really appreciate all this stuff. The fact that we can super chat is just crazy. And, I love the fact that you guys are doing it. So thank you so much. We are doing quite well here. And if you guys have a question as we're talking, yeah, just make sure that if you do super chat, we'll address those questions. Absolutely. But mate, you get into like that 45th minute in a little bit, and we kind of ended the half good. So it went from a case of Wolves winning the first 20 minutes, Arsenal getting a goal, having about a 5-minute period, and then Wolves from I think the 30th minute to like the 42nd minute till that Ben White chance right before. Wolves had ascendancy. We did well to close the half at the end. But then we're going to the second half, mate. What do you make of the second half performance? Because we started poor again. For me, it was a poor period in the game. What do you make of that start?
I think going into the half on top, especially with them having that chance, like right at the end, like the big pressure chances. With like obviously there was also another chance where I think it was Neves who crossed it and Partey got on the end and blocked it and it bounced off then Donker. So they were getting they started to get the crosses in. So going back in, I just think we came out very slowly, lacked intensity. No one put their foot on the ball, so then we couldn't deal with the transitions as we couldn't deal with it at the start of the game as well. And throughout the game, we couldn't deal with the transitions. And then eventually, we slowly got back in, as we always do. We slowly got back in, and Martinelli, I think, did well actually in the second half, maybe just with him and the darting runs with the ball, like just moving us up the pitch. Obviously, he doesn't look when he's dribbling, so it's not as effective as it could be. But I think Laka hurt us a lot, especially second half, because he wasn't running. And then when he's not running, obviously first half you can deal with it because everyone's still fully fit and we can still do the running for him. But when you get to the 50th and the 60th minute, Martinelli, although he thinks he can't continue to run for Laka. So it was just causing us many, many issues and allowing them to pick us off with Neves because the triangle wasn't working. So the press was a very big issue as the legs started to tire, I think, in the second half.
Yeah, mate, and we were lucky. Look, we had those structural issues we talked about in the first half, which, by the way, carried into the second half. It's not like we fixed them, but, Trincao, we were just lucky that he's useless in the final action and decision-making, I'll be honest, because he had some very good positions. And for all that, the Ruben Neves love in, he actually wasn't great in this game. He was, I think really it was Trincao and Podence who were coming in. That half-space drop-in was really struggling for Arsenal, especially down the left. The right-hand side started to gel. I still think that was the story, really, in the second half, mate. I don't know about you, and we responded. Sorry, go ahead.
I think Podence was very smart because obviously he knew that he had space to drop in and noticed that Partey was telling Ben White to not drop deep. So he was just getting it, spinning and just putting in whoever was on the right wing, 1v1 versus Tierney. He noticed that Tierney was having a poor game and abused it, and just kudos to him because they do have some good players, obviously, noticing that, picking him out 1v1. And then eventually the crosses just were going into the same area. So we just dealt with them well, I think.
And I want to highlight, mate, because, look, right before the Martinelli red card, what do? We put on Emile Smith-Rowe. So for everyone thinking that, Arteta didn't recognize, no, he recognized. So what do you think he was bringing on Smith-Rowe to do? We were going to change up. I am convinced what he wanted to do. He took off Odegaard for this, right? Like he wanted to add a little bit more balance on the left-hand side. And unfortunately, he literally subbed him on in the 67th minute, and Martinelli does what he does in the 68th. Now, let's have it quick. I don't want to have a long discussion on it, but let's call a spade a spade. It was factually the ref wanting to give us another red card. Let's call a spade a spade. If you actually look into that kind of whole passage of play, when Martinelli's getting fouled before the throw-in, okay, he gets clipped by the ankles, so he's pissed off. Should he have done the shove? No, it's petulant. I don't care, though. I kind of love that stuff, but it's a foul throw.
The shove was on the throw, so it wasn't in play.
Yeah, and so what I'd have never understood, mate, is immediately it's a foul throw. The ref should have called it back and booked him, for the shove, but also the foul throw. Now, That didn't happen. And so, in the same passage of play, when you run advantage, Martinelli does what he's supposed to do, by the way, because we're behind. People aren't in place. Okay. Granite isn't there because he's asked to be higher up the pitch, by the way. And Chiquinho, who has just been kind of subbed on, okay, he's in space. So, Martinelli does a transitional foul that everybody does. Now, no problem. Individually, for me, by the way, Chris, they are yellow cards if you take out context. The shove on a throw in, calm. I can accept that as a yellow card. The transitional foul, yeah, he makes no play. I can accept individually that they're a yellow. But, A, you pull it back because on every advantage in the same play, you cannot get a yellow card. It's actually in the FA rulebook. On an advantage, if that person makes a foul, you don't give them a yellow card. So I've never understood the reaction. Again, like we said at the beginning of the stream, you never blame referees for results. I will continue to do this as long as we're on BoP. We will never blame ref for results. But we can also at the same time say that he shouldn't have been punished the way he did. Both can be true. Okay, you don't have to blame the result on it, but factually, Michael Oliver's a twat.
Yeah, he made himself a talking point, which is what the refs aren't there to do. And everyone was, even the commentators were baffled. Like, can he? They were asking, can he do that with the double yellow in the same?
Mate, when you play advantage and there's a foul, you bring it back to the position of play. And I've not heard one person on the timeline talk how in the world that throw is not a foul throw. He's off balance. I urge everyone to go back. He is off balance, and it's a foul throw. He only has 1 foot planted. So why in the world was it not brought back? I don't know. And by the way, Martinelli doesn't make that challenge if he knows he's on a yellow. It's 6 seconds. I think I also read a stat.
It's 4 seconds.
It was 4 seconds, yeah, because there was that stat that you saw, I'm sure. It was the quickest 2 yellow red cards since Opta stats have ever been recorded. It's unprecedented. It is factually unprecedented. So, again, I only use this because I don't want to spend a lot of time on it, mate, but I want to call a spade a spade. Like, why can't everybody admit it was totally a refereeing error, but we don't blame the result on the referee? I will never do that, so I'm going to hold my hands up, okay? Never on BoP will UCS say it's the ref's fault, but at the same token, you can completely say that the ref had a mare. Like, I don't think those are mutually exclusive.
He shouldn't be this big a talking point when we win.
Yeah.
He shouldn't. If we lose, I understand a lot of people are going after the ref, but when we win, and it was still stacked against us, like that red card, obviously stuff happened after, and this was a reason why stuff happened after, but the way that red came about was like, and they even scored on, obviously it was offside, but they scored on the free kick from the red card. So
yeah,
that red card had a big like impact, because say you do give him the red card and stuff, but isn't he meant to pull it back for the first foul if you're going to give the?
That's what I'm talking about. It's the same play. It's advantage. It is not a different play. So he has to pull it back.
It doesn't make much sense to me, but at this point, I hope they appeal, and they should win the appeal. But even if they don't, it didn't have as big an impact as it very much could have.
Yeah, but you know what, mate? We're sitting here and we do get a draw because guess what? I remember a similar freaking stupid red card last season with Louise after we played our best play, and it did derail our season. So these things matter. I'm really happy with Mikel, by the way, for calling a spade, saying that he's going to talk to the referees, my manager, as they say online. But like, he should be doing that. It's ridiculous. We are getting the harshest form of rules consistently. We are the team, by the way. Since Mikel Arteta has taken over, since 2019, we have gotten 15 red cards, and the next closest has gotten 8. I'm sorry, guys. Variance doesn't double.
By the way, this season we have the most reds and the least fouls in the league.
No, it's ridiculous, and I understand that people want to say water is wet, but I, at the same token, can't be disingenuous. Let's call a spade a spade. The referees have been horrible, and they have targeted Arsenal. So that's the last time I'm going to say it, but I'm going to call a spade. And then, mate, we go into basically that should we go to the Laka chance, essentially? that happens right after. Okay. We talked about it being, really quickly, that free kick, but let's go to the Laka chance, mate. It's bad. 72nd minute. You go, because I'm upset.
Well, we get the ball, we move it. Gabriel with a great find. Obviously, there was gaps in between, but a great pass, which everyone thought was offside, but it wasn't. Puts in Lacazette at 1v1. And to be fair to him, I'll give him some slack. To be fair to him, Sarr made it harder for him. than other keepers would have. He got big and made
Immense positioning.
yeah, he got big, made the angle look smaller. Testament to how good he's been this season. But like I said, to put it wide, like not even on target, he tried to bend it around the keeper, even though he was moving towards his left. He put it wide. It's just absolutely awful for that. Like he should. Like I was livid in the moment. Obviously, after seeing that Saar moved over and made himself big, but he should have 100% put it at least on target. And then after that, he goes and starts shouting with Arteta. Like he was very poor for the way he finished that off. He should have at least put that on target for me. At least, no way should I could be going wide. No way.
Yeah. And mate, really quickly, like I'm gonna send you a picture because there's been a picture going around about Jose Sa and his positioning. So we'll talk about it. But mate, I'm gonna do it on screen, guys. This is the level of development that you guys want with 1K. But I'm gonna send you a picture that I want you to pop up. But first, I'll talk about Gabriel really quickly. Guys, people keep telling me that Gabriel is a con in possession, and I've said from the very start, I think Gabriel has fixed his gait. He's done really well this season to improve his between the line passing. And this is another example, by the way, of Gabriel taking charge and taking out 2 to 3 lines of defense. When you really watch that play back, that is all Gabriel. Lacazette doesn't really offer him a great run, by the way. Gabriel puts the ball for Lacazette to really do something with it. And, you know, that's the kind of pass where you, as a coach, we call it sending a message with your pass. And so the pace and the where he's put it has basically told Laka, make your damn run. And, you know, he does super well. And look, like you said, Chris, we do have to give props to Jose Sa because, you know, he does what any keeper would do. And in fact, it's phenomenal goalkeeping that any goalkeeping coach would want to kind of highlight. This is what you should be doing, right? He makes himself big. He makes an early decision to meet his marker, something that Ramsdale actually does need to kind of help with. It's one of his weakness. I think Ramsdale's very quick, but his decision-making when to go out needs some work. And Jose Sa does perfectly about meeting his marker very early. But as I keep talking, Chris, you let me know when you're able to put up that picture because I've seen something going around where essentially people are saying that it's not as easy of a chance, which I kind of agree. Jose Sa does well to be 1v1, but I really think that people are missing where Lacazette receives the ball and where it's ended up because that is like a couple seconds before. Guys, this is where Lacazette receives and he's turned in face. And I don't know if the picture is too blurry, but his head is up. He sees Jose Sa coming out to meet him. For me, Chris, bang. Shoot, chip.
Yeah, you shoot when the keeper's not set.
Yes, the keeper is not set. Like any competent striker scores this. So when I was seeing that on the timeline and people were saying, well done, Jose Sa, I'm like, okay, calm. Like I hear that. And, you know, we could probably put the picture away. This is really the only point I wanted to make. But, you know, you have to see how plays. This is why using screenshots is really poor, by the way. It gives a very different opinion. But when he's there, Chris, mate, he's got to chip him. Like it's very common. And
like for me, obviously, he can attempt the chip, which is probably the better option because we know he's going to commit. But how far he came off his line, he's very willing to commit. But you, as a striker, should generally shoot early. But at least from your 1v1, there was no pressure on him. He even had time to take it around him. He had so many options that I don't know why he put it wide.
Mate, he delays. His first touch, he looks. Then he has a second touch that he doesn't even get it on target. And for me, it's poor play. And, you know, he has the audacity, not the excuse, the audacity to go to McCall and say, you know, argue about some tactical decision. But anyways, mate, we could probably breeze through the next couple minutes because we are down to 10 men. And, you know, look, Wolves put on the pressure. Let's call a spade again. Wolves after Wolves after Wolves attack. And Ramsdale makes an excellent save kind of in the 73rd minute just before Laka is subbed. And Ramsdale really stepped up here. But again, we go into our block, and this is going to take me to holding. Everyone, put out your notepads. George VAFC is giving praise to Balding. He's no longer Balding. He is holding. And that is because he had 9 clearances in kind of the 10 minutes that he had. Phenomenal, mate. He's a low block defender. We know this. This is his bread and butter. But he was back there clearing stuff. And I just maybe wanted to go to you. Like, what do you make of Rob Holding, essentially? You know, he turned out one of his best performances, actually his best performance this season. But what do you make of that sub and that 5-3-1 that we're just amazing at?
Oh my, the 5-3-1, we've spent 120 to 130 minutes in this year already.
Yeah.
Holding came on 71st, 72nd minute, just after the lacquer. So the lacquer miss and then Holding comes on. What 9 clearances, 6 with his head, 100% in his aerial duels, 3 out of 3, 1 block, 1 interception, or 3 clearances on his feet. Like, he was immense. He didn't lose the ball once. He had 11 touches. He wasn't dispossessed once. He was like immense. Like 9, he had 3 more clearances than anybody else on the pitch, and he was on the pitch for
20 minutes.
He was on the pitch for 20 minutes. And for him, like, obviously away from home, like when you're in that situation, 5-3-1, is great for him. But even for him, this is a very good performance for a low block defender. Like, he was very consistent, very calm, especially with Wolves immediately, their plan was to just put it in the air. They didn't even work anything out on the floor or anything there. They just started whipping crosses into the box once Holding came on, and he just feasted. He was immense. Like, it's his best performance in a long time, like a very, very long time, I think. And it's just confidence that you can bring someone on and they perform, because we need confidence there. The way the season's going, you need confidence to carry on your form, because your one player could miss out, and as we've seen, he's been forced to play like versus Burnley. So if he comes in with confidence, it will benefit us, not being negative. So him playing well, Cedric playing well, like, is good for us.
Yeah, and you know what? Look, I think a beautiful thing is it leads into the predictions, because I've really got not too much more to say. And again, people in the comments, if you've got any last minute questions, we're going to wrap up soon, do our little man of the matches predictions and stuff like that. You guys just make sure that you drop in, a question with a question mark if you want us to answer something quickly. But yeah, mate, like the biggest thing for me is when I look at this game, that's now 16 games left, guys, and this was a 6-pointer. Let's call it what it is. This was a 6-pointer where we didn't control territory, but we controlled the outcome of the game. So I'm just going to repeat that really slowly for people, because I think there's been a lot of bad narrative on what our Wolves performance was, and that was because we sacrificed territory, but we controlled the outcome. And for me, control is different for everybody. Okay, and a lot of people feel that control is possession, and that's because they look at, I think, Pep, and they basically ignore how off the ball movement can absolutely change games. It can change in defending, in a sense. And for me, what it is we've controlled the outcome of that game, because if you look back, Wolves had awful opportunities, and despite all of their territory, they had awful shots. We deserved to win that game, both on chances, and when you look at it in total, we controlled the narrative of the game, even if we sacrificed territory. And to have that in your back pocket, by the way, for the Champions League when we get it, is immense, right? Like to have that ability to go into like a low block and be able to stave off opposition no matter what is going to be a phenomenal arrow to have in our bow. So big congratulations though to Willow, mate. He's got his first W in those predictions. So 1-0 it was to the Arsenal. Quick reminder of what everyone said on the boards here. And Willow, mate, congratulations, big congrats there to our Edge 2.0. And it basically puts us, this is the table again, guys. Who's up top, wink wink nudge nudge. But look, great win for Willow, great win for Arsenal. And I'll probably go to you, Chris. Final thoughts and man of the match for you.
Final thoughts. Wolves, despite having more possession, 58% possession, they had 15 shots, more shots than us, all this stuff. They had 0.83 XG, which is on average 0.05 XG per shot, which was absolutely awful for when you're playing 25 minutes against a team with a red card. I think resilience and resolute is 2 words I'd describe this performance with. I think Partey has been very good recently, and this performance, regardless of the role, is like very positive for the progression he's had in the Arsenal shirt. I think he's improving a lot. Holding, Cedric, just players being called on and performing regardless of the situation, because obviously Tommy's out. You never know who's going to be out. So these guys being confident is only a positive. Lacquer was poor, which is a negative considering losing of Aubameyang and him becoming captain and all this stuff. So you can't really drop him, can you? And Martinelli red card, which means probably more. I'm 90% sure Smith Rowe starts again, which is a positive for me, but not in the place that I'd like him to start. But and overall, I think great performance away from home. Not many beat Wolves at home. I think they're top four at home in the league. In the league, they were.
In
But
the home form table, they are, yeah.
yeah, they're a good team. But it's just good because now we've 2 games in hand on West Ham, and we're behind them by 1 point. So it's very positive for narrative and very positive for the top four race. I think.
I mean, even for you, right, mate? We're catching Chelsea, and we're only 8 points behind with 2 games in hand.
2 games in hand, yeah. And we're yet to play them.
Yeah, absolutely. Anyways, look, when you look at the league table, guys, it's hard not to. Well, you know what? I won't even call it excited. I'm going to be a cocky bastard. It's justification. We've said that this is going to happen, and it's looking beautiful. It really is, right, Chris? We're in fifth spot again, 1 point behind West Ham. We've got a game in hand on United and ahead and tied with them on points. And then look, Tottenham face. Guess who they face, guys, on the weekend when we don't face Wolves? Pissed off Wolves. So yeah, look, I think that a lot of narratives are going to switch. We are playing very controlled. I think the big thing that I took away from this game, ironically, is despite us having a structure issue, we were still able to control the outcome. And that's the biggest thing for me. In previous games against Brighton, against Palace, when there were structural issues earlier on in the season, we didn't control the narrative, did we? We not only did we sacrifice territory, but we sacrificed good chances, and we weren't controlling the outcome. Here, Yo-Yo, you're right, mate. Like, it's another mentality win, but it's also another win for Mikel, in my opinion. And I say that only because it justifies a lot of the dressing room decisions. Okay. Clearly with what's happened with Oba, people were waiting for us to lose, Chris. Let's call it what it was. The rivals lost. We dropped points. Arsenal aren't going to do it. The amount of times where I was like, challenge, impossible. Arsenal takes advantage of rivals dropping points. Even our own fans, they were learning and urging for it.
Our own fans than other fans.
Oh, it's ridiculous. And so, yeah, I really think, it kind of shows people what we're about. And so it was definitely a mentality win. We controlled the outcome. And yeah, O'Malley, so for me, look, I'm not a person that looks into points. I've said this before, but I've said, I don't know whatever it is, but we need 70 points essentially to get top four. That's been historically the measure. So if we're rocking up on 39 points, do my quick mental math, that's 31 points.
8 out of the next 16.
Exactly. So look, at the end of the day, what we're really looking at is we are looking at 16 cup finals. We're looking at us continuing that consistency. But all in all, I think we're in very good stead. If you look at the run-ins with both Tottenham and Manchester United, I urge people to please have a look at Tottenham's next 5 games. They're scary. They're not really going to make a lot of points in terms of they've got Wolves, they've got Manchester City. They've got another tough game in there too, Chris. I'm forgetting. But then Manchester United have a horror schedule in March. We have one of the best run-ins out of the top 4 race, and we've done our business in the past. That means that we do have to continue with our performances. It doesn't mean it's a let-off, but I really think as top 4 becomes more of a reality for other fans, not us, because we've been really looking at it, I think the pressure is going to increase, right? And we did say a big question for this team is how can they deal being ahead? This is why it's a mentality win, because before we've been chasing top 4. This was the first game in a while where we were ahead and we had to assert our dominance. You know what I mean, Chris? Like we had that opportunity at Everton, at Manchester United. We did fail those tests. This is another data point that says
you're playing the chaser, because if Wolves beat you, they go above you.
Exactly.
You're also getting the like recognition after the game. Everyone's saying, "Oh, Arsenal's favourites now. Arsenal's our favourites." Like everyone was saying. So deserved, I think.
Absolutely. It was completely deserved. And guys, look, a little bit of a shorter one. You guys let us know. We're trying to change things up, and we want to cater to you guys, the fans. And so we want to say a big thank you, and I'll do my little robot thing and make sure that you guys like, comment, subscribe. You can follow us at BoP Footy on Twitter. You can find me at GeorgeV_AFC. Chris, mate, where can they find you and the other lads?
I'll go for the other lads first. You can find Z, who's not here, @PrivArsenal_Z. You can find Curran at Curran BoP. You can find all of us at BOP Footy. You can find Willow at the One Willow, and POC Cake is not there for now. He's not there for now, so you can't follow him there. But where else? I think it's CKAFC underscore something like that. CKAFC underscores. I just made a random account just for the meantime. But yeah, follow BOP Footy if you want to follow me instead.
And guys, if you want to see robot embarrassment, the TikTok is coming. It is
Yeah,
coming. Do not worry.
It'll be there within a week. It has to be there.
Yeah. So I will appease the masses. But again, please, like as always, we want to improve. And I just want to say a big thank you for the super chats. Like I know this is probably the first video that we've been able to have super chats and stickers and all that like weird stuff. But as a tech illiterate, I'm just so thankful. I didn't understand when I saw a sticker. I was like, what the hell is this?
And then not thank you actually. Soon, like Tuesday, I'll just say Tuesday, we got a video coming. We got another top 10. We're doing top 10 midfielders this time. Obviously, the strikers and wingers caused big debate in the chat and stuff. But yeah, top 10 midfielders, like all midfielders, not going to be
in the Premier League
or separated into tens and DMs and all that. We're going to make it hard for everyone and do all of them together. So, and we're going to see who comes out on top. I know who might. But be there Tuesday 8 p.m.
Absolutely. Tuesday 8 p.m. is going to be our next video. As Yo-Yo likes to say too, it makes you guys learn a little bit more about us, about what we value, I think, a little bit too, in terms of players, what we look for in scouting. And they always bring debates. You're going to see Curran's anguish as well, if you love to see that. So you're going to see Papa Curran.
You're going to see what he shout. He shouts every single top 10. He's going to shout for one player. I don't know who it's going to be. It's been Drogba and it's been Ljungberg. He's going to shout a lot. So expect.
For sure. And look, again, guys, I do want to reiterate the thank yous. I know it might seem like a lot, but look, honestly, it's crazy that we've been able to get to this milestone. And like the super chats have been unbelievable. I just want to thank every single one of you guys that engages, talks to us. And please leave comments how we can improve, things that you can have that you guys want to see that maybe we're not quite doing yet. And we will definitely be doing that. So top 10 midfield, that's coming up on Tuesday at 8 p.m. Again, the big one. I'm a midfield man. But yeah, let's just sign off. Wolves, Arsenal, 1-0. You know, we're going to be doing that on Tuesday. I think this is a mentality win for the squad, onwards and upwards. And we will catch you guys at Tuesday, 8 p.m. for that top 10 midfield video. Thank you so much. I've been George. This has been Chris, and we're signing off.
Peace.